Hello, this is Blue Joe Saunders, WBO Middleweight Champion of the World. Subscribe to Sporting Icons to stay in touch with all the top news. God bless you all.
Now, I've been seeing quite a bit of news articles and people talking about this particular thing of Chris Eubank Jr. taking on Matt Korobov. This will be happening on December the 7th at the Barclays Center in New York, which happens to be the same date as Joshua and Ruiz have their rematch over in Saudi Arabia. Now, I've seen Eddie Hearn, he's talked about this fight, saying how he believes that Korobov is going to beat Chris Eubank Jr. and all that kind of thing. Now, first of all, I disagree with that one, and I'll tell you why as this video goes along. But ultimately, it's not a bad fight for him. Now, this will be on the undercard of Jermall Charlo defending his WBC World Middleweight title against Dennis Hogan. Now, Dennis Hogan, he lost his last fight to Heyman Guia, which was for the WBO 154-pound world title. So he loses that fight for a world title. Arguably he won that one, and I can certainly see why people say that, no doubt about it. But now he's going to move up in weight and take on Jermall Charlo for a world title. It doesn't quite work out, it really doesn't, but this is just typical PBC. Now, as far as Chris Eubank Jr. goes, now he's going to take on Matt Korobov, and this will be for the interim WBA world middleweight title. So first of all, Chris Eubank Jr., he's coming back down from super middleweight to middleweight. Now, Matt Korobov, he got a decision loss to Jermall Charlo, and a lot of people felt that, including myself, that Korobov beat Charlo. Now, I'm not saying that if these guys rematched that he would definitely beat Charlo again, all that kind of thing. I'm not saying that. I do feel that Jermall Charlo underperformed in that fight, and I think a lot of it was because his brother lost the title, didn't he, on the very same night on his undercard. So I think a lot of that played into his psyche when he fought Korobov. Now, for Chris Eubank Jr. to be taken on Matt Korobov for the interim WBA World Middleweight title, if he was to win this one, then he would become mandatory challenger for either Saul Canelo Alvarez or Ryota Murata. Murata is the regular WBA champion, and of course Canelo is the super champion. So which one is it? I have absolutely no idea whatsoever. Now, of course, Eddie Hearn, he's saying that he believes Korobov is going to beat him, and this is a huge, dangerous fight for Chris Eubank Jr. Now, it is a dangerous fight, no doubt about it. But Eddie Hearn is saying that how he had the option to go fight Billy Joe Saunders for a world title, or go fight Callum Smith at super middleweight as well for a world title, but he decided not to do that and go fight Korobov. So it doesn't quite make sense for him. But as this is going to be for an interim title, which means if he beats Korobov, he's then guaranteed a world title shot after, it ain't too bad really, is it? So from that point of view, I can disagree with Eddie Hearn. Now, as far as Eddie Hearn's and plenty of other people saying that Korobov is going to defeat Chris Eubank Jr., I don't think so. I really don't think so. I mean, Eubank, of course, he has got two losses, one to Billy Joe Saunders, and then the other one was, of course, to George Groves. No shame in that, in my opinion. Both of these guys were fantastic world elite fighters, so him losing to either one of these guys and going the distance as well is no great shame. Now, Korobov, as I said, he has two losses. He did get stopped once in his career, which was way back in 2014 by Andy Lee. A lot of you guys will know Andy Lee. But of course, he came back and he fought a few guys, well, pretty borderline journeyman come gatekeepers. And then he gets an opportunity against Jermall Charlo for whatever reason it may be. And for me, I had him beating Charlo, but obviously the judges totally disagreed. Then after that fight, he got a draw with a guy called Alim. I don't know who that guy is, but he had a record of 18 wins, 1 defeat and 1 draw. But he got a draw against that guy, and now he's going to be fighting for a WBA interim title. So again, there's boxing politics. Some people, they get preferential treatment over others, and for whatever reason. So for me, I don't quite know why he's in line for a WBA interim world title, much like I don't understand how Dennis Hogan is in line for a world title shot against Jermall Charlo. So he's coming up from 154 to 160 after he lost, or at least on paper, he lost to Heyman Guia. As I said, I know a lot of people disagree with that one. But it's just typical PBC, in my opinion. Now, as far as Chris Eubank Jr. and Korobov is concerned, I think Chris Eubank Jr. will beat him. He could potentially stop him as well, because the difference is between Chris Eubank Jr. and Jermall Charlo is that Jermall Charlo, he's not a pressure fighter. Chris Eubank Jr. is. Okay, he will let his hands go, and he will throw a lot of combinations. He's got a devastating uppercut and everything, and he's got a very, very good chin. I'm not too sure of the chin of Jermall Charlo, to be honest with you. And Jermall Charlo, while he's a very good fighter, he's more of a placement puncher where he doesn't really tend to waste too many shots. Chris Eubank Jr. is quite happy to waste shots. He has the fighting style of somewhat, almost, like a Joe Calzaghe. Reason being that his father, he took on Calzaghe, and he realised that he couldn't live with Calzaghe because Calzaghe would just throw punch after punch after punch. And even though a lot of those punches weren't necessarily landing, it looks good as far as the judges go. So that's why Chris Eubank Jr. has the style that he does now, rather than the style of his dad. Now, for me, I think that Chris Eubank Jr., he's going to overwhelm Korobov, potentially stop him, potentially. If he does, it'll probably be the later rounds, because Korobov, he does tend to fade as the rounds go on. But I do feel that Chris Eubank Jr. will either win by a late stoppage or he'll win on points. And then afterwards, if he does get a world title shot against either Canelo or a Rota Murata, then I can kind of see why he turned down a Billy Joe Saunders or a Callum Smith world title, especially as they're at super middleweight. And Eubank has always said that he's a natural middleweight, so he's got to almost bulk himself up a little bit to get into super middleweight. So either way, for me, I think that Chris Eubank Jr. potentially has made the right decision, especially if he does get the win. And Korobov is no joke. He's 36 years old. He does reside in America. He's got American nationality, but born in Russia as well. But him being 36 years old, obviously he's going to be a little bit slower than what he once was. But Korobov was always, was he really a world-class fighter? I don't know. He certainly is not of the elite, but world-class, potentially, maybe, if not just borderline of it. But I think that this could be the homecoming, if you like, for a Chris Eubank Jr. by defeating a Korobov and then going to get a world title fight with either a Canelo, which would be fantastic if he does, or Murata. But which one is it going to be? No idea. But as Chris Eubank Jr., he fights for the PBC now. Both of these fights will be quite difficult to make because obviously Canelo, he's over on DAZN. And you've got Rota Murata. He predominantly fights in Japan. He does fight in America once in a while, but he fights for Top Rank. So again, it's going to be quite complicated to make those fights. But I'm sure Chris Eubank Jr., he doesn't care about travelling. He doesn't care about what platform it is. But Al Heyman does. So potentially, at least, because Chris Eubank Jr. is on the undercard of Jermall Charlo. So if Charlo wins and Eubank wins, don't be surprised if we see Charlo versus Chris Eubank Jr. And if that happens, I will be picking Chris Eubank Jr. to outwork Jermall Charlo on that one. So anyway, listen, that's my thoughts on it all. I'm not against this fight whatsoever. I can kind of see the logic from one point of view. But yes, it certainly is a risky fight. Korobov is no joke. But for me, I do feel that Chris Eubank Jr. will outwork him. I think that it could quite happily, comfortably even, stop him late rounds. Just due to Korobov, he does tend to fade off. And Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't really tend to fade too much. He has once in a while. I mean, against Billy Joe Saunders, he arguably lost the very first half of that fight. But then he took over for the second half of the fight. And all Billy Joe had to do was win one of those rounds and he would have got the decision, which is ultimately what happened. And against George Groves as well. George Groves, of course, he did pop his shoulder, but he was starting to fade as the fight went on. And Chris Eubank Jr. he still had like a lot of energy about him. The problem is that he didn't quite know how to cut the ring off and he didn't know how to land the meaningful punches. He was just very, very one-dimensional in some of those fights. Now, who his coach is going to be, no idea. No idea whatsoever. And as far as I'm aware, I think his dad has got not too much to do with his career anymore as well. So either way, it is what it is. So Chris Eubank Jr., he will be taking on Matt Korobov. And this will be at the Barclays Center in New York on the undercard of Jermall Charlo versus Dennis Hogan. Oh, by the way, I wouldn't mind seeing Dennis Hogan win. Of course, he's Irish, but he does reside in Australia. Yes, he does have a loss against Heyman Guia, the fight beforehand. But as I said, a lot of people do feel that he won that fight. But anyway, it is what it is. It's going to be an interesting card, and I'll be interested to see what other fights are added. At the minute, there are no other fights added. It's just those two. So for me, obviously, I ain't going to be able to watch it, am I? Because I'm going to be watching the Saudi Arabia one with Anthony Joshua. And I don't know how many people are going to be watching this card because of the Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz one as well. Although there will be a couple of hours difference, so maybe. Yeah, maybe. maybe. Anyway, that's what's going on. You drop your thoughts below about it. Click the thumbs up to this video. And, of course, subscribe. And I'll catch you all on the next one.